Welcome everybody to Coffee with Craig. Happy Tuesday. As you can see, I'm slightly gussied up. There's a lot of stuff going on today. Here in California, we have the first confirmation hearing for the proposed or nominated Attorney General, Representative Javier Becerra. That should be an interesting watch. We've also got the governor's going to be introducing his new budget this year. We'll be keeping an eye on it. Once again, keeping an eye on your DROS fees, making sure they're not abused. But today's topic for Coffee with Craig has to do with gun-free zones, in particular, school gun-free zones. Now, we all know that basically gun-free zones are a myth, that the idea that a sign that says that this is a gun-free zone, we all know that that doesn't make individuals at school, it doesn't make them any safer. In fact, what it does is it creates a target-rich environment for those who seek to instill terror. It creates an area where they know they can go, where they're going to have the least amount of resistance and be able to inflict the maximum amount of harm. Well, this week, or rather last week, gentleman, Congressman Massey from Kentucky introduced a bill it's H.R. 34, that would do away with the federal Gun-Free Zone Act. This basically would be a bill that would repeal the bill that was originally passed in 1990, was later deemed unconstitutional, and then was reworked and reintroduced in 1996. But it's basically been in place for a good period of time. And his rationale is a lot like ours. Not only does it infringe upon the constitutional rights of individuals to be able to keep and bear arms, it infringes upon their fundamental right to be able to defend themselves. And oh, by the way, they just don't work, especially when you consider that an overwhelming majority of the mass shootings that have taken place since the passage of this law have in fact happened in gun-free zones. So good news and bad news. Then the good news about this is this is something that President Donald Trump has said very emphatically that this is something that he wanted to do. Is he said, I'll sign it on day one. Now, he won't get to sign this bill on day one, but he said that he wants to get rid of gun-free zones at schools and he wants to get rid of gun-free zones on military bases. So this should be something that should it get to the president's desk, or president-elect, soon-to-be president's desk, should become law. The bad news is, for those of us here in California, we actually have a state school gun-free zone act, which was passed into law in 1995, which basically means that not much changes for us here in the state of California. But it's good to recognize, at least for everybody else outside of the People's Republic of California, that there could perhaps be some sanity reinstilled into the educational process. And it's really kind of crazy because people in the educational establishment, just the idea of guns, just for some reason seems to drive them nuts. And I don't know why. Used to have shooting ranges at schools, used to have gun safety courses at schools. I mean, that used to be like it used to be the spot. It used to be a place where we taught people how to have respect for firearms. We taught people how to have respect for firearms, not to glorify them, but to understand that it is a tool that is necessary, one, to be able to defend oneself, but even for those who are interested in hunting and whatnot. But for some reason, whenever they hear about guns, they just go nuts. And anyway, that's my 2 cents today on the Gun-Free Zone Act. Let's see what you guys have to say about it. I know, let me guess, I can already guess one of the first questions going to come up is, well, how come federal law does not supersede state law? Let me see if I get one of those. Do I have one? Lewis, I'm so tired of living here with our laws. Well, the best way to change our laws is to change our lawmakers. So if you're not represented by a pro-civil rights, pro-constitutional representative here in the state legislature, let's see what we can do working together to replace them. The solution, a federal fix. 50 years ago, southern states stubbornly held on to the archaic and un-American practice of segregation. Segregation is just, I don't exactly see where that's going. Yeah, that's a little bit too long of a comment for me to read the entire thing. But you guys can go on and read that comment. I'm okay with CCWs as long as those who have CCWs are well trained and receive training. Well, exactly. I mean, here's the thing: in order to obtain a concealed weapons permit in the state of California, you have to go through. First of all, you have to go through a very intensive background check with your local sheriff, with the state Department of Justice, and they also check NICS. So you go through a federal background check as well. You also have to be trained and demonstrate that you are proficient with your firearm. And you do this every 2 years. You are the very definition of a law-abiding citizen. You are the person who should be there, who should have a firearm on school grounds in order to be able, once again, to defend yourself or others from those who would seek to do harm, those who are not going through background checks. They're still going to bring their firearms onto campus. Those who have not demonstrated an ability to use their firearm. Once again, they're not going through all that because they are not interested. Criminals don't obey the law. By definition, they do not obey the law. They are not going to say, gee, I would love to walk onto this campus with a firearm, but it's a gun-free zone. What am I going to do? Anyway, so no, you are 100% correct. How do we make California must issue? If you want to make California shall issue, that's largely going to happen. Either the legislature is going to pass something or it's going to have to go through the courts. And I think that's what we're working on now. Right now we're dealing with at the federal level, it's already been deemed that we have a right to keep arms, right? What hasn't been fully vetted is the idea: do we have a right to bear arms, to keep arms on our person? There's two ways to do that. There's open carry, and then there's concealed carry. They've already said, at least regarding California, they've already said that we don't have a right. At least the Supreme Court hasn't said it, but the Ninth Circuit has said we don't have a right to conceal carry. But that wasn't the question that was asked. The question was asked, do we have a right to bear arms? And that's why now you're seeing lawsuits coming forward that deal with open carry. Because if you can't open carry and you can't conceal carry, well, then how do you express your constitutional right to bear arms? You have to say one way or another, do we have a right to bear arms? And that's going to be the question that's got to be proposed to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's easier for Satan to get into heaven than for any law-abiding citizen to get a CCW in LA County. Yeah, you might have a point there, but once again, that's one of the point of these lawsuits. One of the points of what we've been doing, FPC, and then working with the Cal Guns Foundation in our Sunshine Initiative is, there's a such thing as the Equal Protection Act, and then all of us are supposed to have the same rights. It's why does someone in one county have more of a right to keep and bear arms than someone in another county? That's the thing that we're pushing to find out. Okay, are they implementing the law the way in which the law was meant, and is it being done evenly across the state of California? And that's what we're looking to see. That's what we're looking at when we look at each and every one of the county sheriff's policies to make sure that it's being properly implemented. Because you have some who do believe in the constitutional right to keep and bear arms, and they're allowing people who are law-abiding citizens and demonstrate an ability, once again, to be able to utilize their firearm and they understand the law. They're allowing them to conceal carry. You have others who, no way, no how, they're not approving anybody. And then you've got some who, well, if you're the right person, if you're the campaign contributor, if you're someone who's politically connected, well, then maybe you can get one. We're trying to make sure that most folks are like that very first one. Once again, law-abiding citizen, and just want to be able to exercise your rights. Unless you're friends with the sheriff or have money or a movie star. Yeah, well, that's once again back to LA County. Will we have a chance in the Ninth Circuit is changed? I really don't know. And quite frankly, you have to keep in mind the leanings of the Ninth Circuit. I'm not a legal expert, so I'm not going to sit here and proclaim to be one. The key for us really is going to be, what does the Supreme Court look like? Once again, and you guys have all heard me say this before, even if we get a clone of Scalia as his replacement, that's still the same Supreme Court that hasn't heard a Second Amendment case since 2010. there's got to be more change in the Supreme Court to get them to hear some of these cases, to get them to hear some of these cases that are going to be coming up to them so that we can get some resolution on some of these. I believe that we'll have that opportunity. I just don't know if it's going to be with the first Supreme Court. I think a change in some of the other courts, a change in some of the appellate courts, I think that maybe could change some of the members of the Supreme Court's mind. If decisions start coming down that they disagree with, who knows? Maybe that'll change it. I don't know. What I do know right now is that we need to make sure that we're fighting at least at the level that we can. And the battle that we have to fight is the battle that's in front of us at every turn. We need to think forwardly, but we also need to make sure that we're fighting the fight that's in front of us. That's going to be it for today's coffee. Encourage you to go ahead, go read the article. It's really kind of an interesting article in terms of where things are going federally. Once again, this is the same guy who's restarting up the Second Amendment caucus. I think it really could be, at least at the federal level, a real boom time for gun rights in the United States of America. So anyway, that's it for today. We'll talk at you tomorrow.
If you like these updates, please share them with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel.